couldn't be more friendly to me if he tried. We are in a situation right now, ladies and gentlemen, where our fishing industry, our 1,000-year-old coastal fishing industry in this country, is about to end. And that is because of the long and pernicious effects of the common fisheries policy, but also because of the utter and total craven cowardice of the government that is implementing it. And to tell you more about this, a man who I have long admired, who is also, for reasons that will become obvious, our whip in the European Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to introduce Raymond Finch.
Afternoon, everybody. Having fun? I bet you were expecting me to trip over there, weren't you? I always do when I'm walking across. I always judge just how far it is and think, this time I'm not going to make it. I expect myself to go flying right across in a Morecambe Wise type manner. What I'd like to say, start off saying good afternoon and welcome to the conference of the party which, according to our esteemed friends in the media, is on the brink of extinction in the polls. Who knew? Amazing, isn't it? We've been, in terms of number of votes, by far the most popular party in by-elections and the EU elections in the past few years. We're over double the percentage of the polls of one of the government coalition members, I can't remember who. And the Prime Minister is so absolutely terrified of debating our party leader. He's got to hide behind the skirts of a load of smaller parties like the Lib Dems in the TV debate, and then he turns around and says, no, I'm not doing it anyway. It's all scary out there. Where's Nana? Well, we won the last two by-elections, as has been said in this Parliament, and came within a whisker of beating the Labour Party in their heartland in a by-election which they caused with unseemly haste following the sad death of one of their own MPs in an attempt to save their electoral skins. And now, because of this scaremongering campaign orchestrated by the establishment and promoted by their willing lapdogs in the media, we are expected to run and hide and let the old discredited establishment parties walk all over the voters of this United Kingdom. Well, here's a bit of news for them. We aren't going away, and we will not let down our millions of supporters, and furthermore the millions of other people across Europe who are looking for UKIP to give a lead and bring back some form of democracy to this bureaucratic-ridden, tired old continent that is being destroyed, absolutely destroyed, by the EU. Thank you. This brings me rather neatly, I think, to some other people at the establishments which would go away, our fishermen. Now, the Tory Fisheries Minister, George Eustace, for those who are unaware, some people may say that, I couldn't possibly comment. He's telling our fishermen to behave with restraint. And the EU is actually good for them. They've always behaved with restraint. They and their forebears have been fishing sustainably around this island for over 1,000 years. They understand that the sea is a resource which should be nurtured. Meanwhile, outside our 12-mile zone, there are immense French, Dutch, Spanish, Belgian and numerous other fleets hoovering up the sea life and destroying our ecological heritage by causing desertification of our seas. And what does the Minister do about that? I'll tell you, nothing. Because he has neither the will, nor, while we are prisoners of the common fisheries policy, the ability to do so. While we're in this disgraceful stitch-up, our seas are being destroyed by the EU fleets with the tacit complicity of our own government. Our fishermen, due to this mad common fisheries policy quota system, are forced to throw away many, many tons of quality cod and so on overboard every year, while we import hundreds of tons of the same fish from foreign fishermen. It's not just the economics of the madhouse, it's the policy of the poorhouse, and it's destroying our communities and our economy. In North Devon, as Steve was saying just now, our fishermen have been given a skate and ray quota that is not enough even to pay for one day's diesel to go out and try and catch them. Our sub-10 metre drift net fisheries face a complete ban simply because the EU is unable to enforce their own rules on lawbreakers in the Mediterranean. So our blameless, ecologically sound industry must go to the wall to pay for the utter incompetence of the European Union. Sorry I had to look down then. You wouldn't normally associate the European Union with utter incompetence, would you? I couldn't believe it, I'll show you. While I'm talking about this mad and pointless, cruel, bureaucratic meddling from the EU, have you heard about our recreational fishermen? They're being punished because the French bass fleet, having wiped out the bass population in their own waters, have now caused what is believed to be an 80% drop in the bass biomass in ours. And the EU's sadly typical response to all this, I kid you not, is to try to limit sea anglers to a maximum of 3 bass a trip. Apart from the sheer impossibility of enforcing this lunacy, the EU is punishing the innocent because its own common fisheries policy is a catastrophic economic, cultural and ecological failure. Our sea anglers believe this move is the thin end of the wedge in trying to regulate all sea angling, and as I am a fairly unsuccessful sea angler myself, I believe them and I will fight to back them in their fight against this injustice. And meanwhile, Mr. Eustace, sorry, what was his first name again?
George Eustace.
That's the one. His friends in the UK governing body, the Marine Management Organisation, not one of whom, by the way, is a fisherman, just the usual bunch of lawyers and mandarins, and his other friends in the coalition government simply don't care. The historic port of Appledore, which has been a fishing harbour for 1,000 years, is now almost completely closed. Sent down the Swanee by the treachery of consecutive governments and their craven bending of the knee to the EU. And this, my friends, is happening all around our coasts. I, as UKIP's fisheries spokesman, am not content to let our greatest natural resource, our people, be ruined in the interests of this new colonial megastate. I say, let us leave the EU and let us leave now. Not after some prefixed renegotiation, which has already been proven to consist entirely of the few things that are still in the UK government's power to do. Won't make a blind bit of difference to the real issues that affect real people. Give us a simple in-out vote with no shenanigans and no bullying and threats from the likes of Mrs. Merkel, Mr. Mandelson and all these other various ne'er-do-wells. Let the people decide. Our membership of the Common Fisheries Policy has been an unmitigated catastrophe, both in terms of the economy and the environment, for our coastal communities and our nation as a whole. We've had one of this country's primary historic resources stolen from us. Did you know that 70% of the so-called common fisheries for the EU are actually what would be UK waters if we left and secured the 200-mile exclusive economic zone which the UN Law of the Sea allows? Our small-scale fishermen have had their livelihoods stolen, and our seas, which are as much our own patrimony as the vineyards of Champagne are to the French, or the orange groves of Andalusia are to the Spaniards, have been mercilessly exploited by foreign factory ships with no regard for sustainability or the future of our economy.
Absolutely.
The fact that foreign boats are fishing in UK waters under flags of convenience and not even landing the fish at our ports is a scandal which a UK government will never allow to continue. This will amuse you. Listen to Greenpeace. They agree. They understand what's happening, although they falsely believe that this common fisheries policy can be an agent of reform rather than one of destruction. The common fisheries policy has been enforced for over 40 years and things have only gotten worse. Greenpeace needs to recall that if you keep doing the same thing, you will keep getting the same results. Yeah. I've just published a booklet, what I wrote, called Stolen Seas, which explains the historic and horrific background of the common fisheries policy, what it's done to our communities, our economy and our ecology, and what we will do to restore this priceless treasure to our own safe stewardship. It's available at the EFDD stall now, and if you wish to order additional copies for your fellow members who are not here, and shame on them, you can order them free of charge from the Newton Abbot office. People see, and Stuart, my colleague, will go on about this shortly, that the common agricultural policy is a disaster, and so it is. However, for the people of our coastal communities, our nation and our seas, the common fisheries policy is much, much worse. It is the hidden tragedy of the EU. I travel all around our ports speaking to our fishermen, and they're crying out for someone to help them, to save their livelihoods and their communities, and to give their children a chance for the future. Now, you and I, ladies and gentlemen, know there's only one thing that can be done. We must escape the ruinous common fisheries policy, and the only way we can do that is to leave the EU. And the only way we can do this is to ensure that when we leave this conference, sorry, I'm breaking these in for the red room. When we leave this conference, we must talk to all of our friends, families, neighbours, and persuade them to vote UKIP on May the 7th. Let's work together and get our country back. Have a marvellous afternoon listening to these interesting people. And remember, don't let the establishment and their media lapdogs grind you down. We will fight and we will win. Thank you.